Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Everybody watch your ads. Help us make a little dough on the side. Watch your ads. Come in, get comfy, get warm. Welcome to our Wednesday night stream. I have a very good friend on, Chris the Entertainah. Chris, I'm going to start off with something by introducing what was the high point of the season, at least for me. And this isn't even being sarcastic about the Giants right now and how bad they are. Like, honestly, the high point of the season for me is when we sat right next to each other for FanFest and Authentic took like these great photos. I'm just noticing now that it's on a computer screen that your eyes are closed, but that's okay. And then
it's because I was laughing.
It's just true. It's just true. You have such a funny, like, great laugh. It's so infectious. So I mean, this was FanFest where we were recording right with MetLife in the background with LPG, Bobby, yourself, and then myself. So that was like the high point of the season, and that's the second to last time that we saw each other. We saw each other a couple weeks ago at the Eagle tailgate. How are you, my friend? Thank you for joining us.
No, man, I was so pumped up when you asked me to come on. Always love talking to you guys. You guys have such a great community and, a great YouTube channel. You guys are probably the channel I most frequently watch outside of my own. Bobby's film breakdowns are terrific. I think you guys have a great podcast. A lot of times when I'm on the treadmill, I'll listen to you guys in the background. So I think you guys are two great guys, and you're definitely building a great YouTube channel. So anytime you guys ask me to come on, I haven't been so forthcoming with asking people to come on recently for the simple reason I'm kind of sick of talking about this team right now. Like you said, man, the high point of the season was that freaking FanFest.
Yeah.
And this season has just been a complete and utter disaster, really, since the start. I mean, it's been bad, man.
Yeah. So unlike last week where I had Dan and Nick Filato on, and I kind of knew, like, going into it, like, hey, we're going to be recording a podcast for themselves. So I didn't really get a chance to look at a chat often, but Chris, you're a YouTuber. You know how these things work. Fan with the mic. Hello. Nice to see you.
Awesome.
I'm just going to read names. Michael, amazing guy. Joey, J-Dog, Yuri, Mark, Andrew, Christopher. Hi.
Hi. Hello. He's the best. He always says hi.
You know what I tell him? I think he's also a Patreon member. So he was in like our chats, and I tell him, it's like, you don't even realize like how helpful that hi is as soon as those videos comes out with those post notifications. Because it's like you just saying hi, and then I could respond to you saying, hi, Andrew. It's 2 comments for the algorithm right there, which I tell him, like,
I don't
like
say
great.
hi. I normally say hola. I say hola back. Yeah, I go with a different language.
We have the differentiation where I say hi, Andrew. Bobby says hello, Andrew. So Andrew knows that depending on which version of hi and hello he gets, that's how he knows which one of us that we're responding with. So Sean Sullivan, hello. Eli, hello. Got a bunch of people in there. El Jefe, look at this.
He makes the best videos, man.
He has been, like, this is not a shot to any other, not to you, not to myself, not to any other, giant content creator out there. But, and I've told Jeff this over and over again, his videos have been the single best part of content every single week on any platform. Like, whether it's podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, it's been the best. So it's really, that's a credit to him, and that's a credit to what Jeff has been able to do.
I said it when he actually said congratulations to you and me, because you hit 8,000 on Twitter. I think I hit 10,000. So congratulations on that, Justin. But I said it when he said that. I retweeted it. I said he's literally the highlight of my week on Twitter, because Twitter's a madhouse, Justin. It's like hard to like find. You have one side of this. It depends on the topic, but every topic there's everybody's completely divided on everything when it comes to the New York Giants. So it's nice to find somebody that brings some laughter and joy as a New York Giant fan. So I absolutely love his videos.
I feel bad, and this could be a good thing to kind of talk about. I see that my camera's like glitching in and out. I'm going to try not to move that much. I feel bad sometimes because Twitter talking points and Twitter conversations are such sometimes good talking points.
Yeah.
But then when you bring it onto a podcast, or when you bring it onto YouTube, where not everybody's on Twitter, it's such a difficult thing to balance. Where over the last couple of weeks, I've been like, well, this is a Twitter conversation, but it basically has no other relevance to if you're just an average Giants fan who doesn't have Twitter. Remember the Ryan Dunleavy, Daniel Jones thing?
Yes.
Where it was it Ryan Dunleavy or Paul Schwartz? I think it was Schwartz. Who somebody said that Jones suffered the structural damage in his neck against the Bucks.
Well, first it was the Carpenter.
Well, the Carpenter was a running joke
Oh,
that
it
only
was
Twitter
Dunleavy.
people got.
It was Dunleavy.
Dunleavy.
It
Okay,
was
so
Dunleavy
Dunleavy, I got
because he
it right
messed up
initially.
on his article.
Yeah, but that was mainly like a Twitter thing, and it was 6 hours of panic, and then they like rescinded the story, and then it was like, oh, back to normal. Well, it's like people, if you're not on Twitter, you didn't get to experience that 6 hours of anxiety,
Right.
which is
Yeah,
crazy.
because all of a sudden you're thinking conspiracy or like they knew about the injury the week before. And yeah, stuff like that happens on Twitter all the time,
Yeah.
man. It's a crazy place when it comes to the New York Giants.
All right, so here's how we're gonna get started.
Actually, it was Paul Schwartz. You were right. Eddie just said it. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was Paul Schwartz. So I don't want to make Dunleavy look bad.
Tomato, tomato. They sometimes make themselves look bad. Love them, great guys. Here's how I want to start. What's kind of keeping you going right now with watching this team, or even not just watching the team, but also making content, making videos, live streaming? You're the king of the live stream. So what's kind of keeping you going right now with this football team throughout the final 4 weeks of the season?
The thing that's kept me going is the same thing that's kept me going since I've been on YouTube, because they've been just as bad every year since I've been on YouTube. They haven't gotten much better. Just that this year we had a lot more hope. This was a year where, not that I was trying to set false expectations, but we were going in with at least 8-9 wins. That's a fairly probable expectation going on into the year based off what they did in free agency. But what's keeping me going, to be honest with you, man, listen, I'm a diehard fan, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm thinking about the future. I am. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited to see where this team is headed. What are they going to do with the general manager? What are they going to do with the head coach? Which I agree with Bobby and you. I think they're sticking with Judge. I've said that now for over a month, long before the report from Rappaport came out. I still think they're sticking with Judge, but obviously we want answers as a fan base. Once they bring in that general manager, what's his direction going to be? What players may they retain that are pending free agents? So that's what I'm looking forward to be honest with you. Yeah. Am I going to get excited if we have an opportunity maybe to knock out the Eagles, out of the playoff race? Absolutely. You're a Giants fan. You always root against your rivals. But right now, man, I'm just as interested in the Bears games as I am the Giants.
Oh, yeah. It's just so tough without Jones, because after the Garrett, what was your big talking point after the Garrett firing? Because our big talking point was, this is huge for Judge, but we were mainly talking about Daniel Jones. And I kind of got flack from some people, like, why are you just so into like now post Jason Garrett? Because what, like, us, like, we talked last year.
You guys definitely had, like, you viewed him as the Antichrist. Which,
yeah. Which,
in the end, you were not wrong. I mean, he was bad. I'm not saying he wasn't, but you guys were very anti-Garrett, which a lot of Giants fans were.
Yeah, we were. And, I remember having a conversation with you last year where you're like, no, I'm willing to give it a second year. Continuity is a good thing. And, let's fix some other things on this offense. Let's add some weapons, et cetera, get Barkley back. So where were you, like, after that Garrett firing? Like, what was the main thing that you wanted to see? Or are you kind of in the same mode now as you were with Garrett? So where were you?
Not in the same mode. By about week 5, week 6, I was completely on board. And again, I still did not think that Jason Garrett was the only problem. I always thought there was more than just one thing. Yeah. Joe Judge included in that. The players included in that. But obviously the scheme wasn't helping. But by about week 5, week 6, I even made a video. I came out and said, out of all the changes they could potentially make at this point in time, the one change that could most dramatically, hopefully, impact the team in a positive way in season is moving on from the offensive coordinator. Dave Gettleman's not going to do anything in season. The draft's already over. You're not bringing in free agents. So I was completely on board making that shift week 5, week 6. And to be honest with you, Justin, I was surprised that they waited till after the bye to do it. Yeah. Like, if they were going to do it, why not do it at the bye? I know you were coming off a win, but why not do it at the bye? He's got 2 weeks to prepare. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And then, for me, it's not even like a whole in-season change. It was also just a January change, and that's the whole thing of, continuity is a good thing. Is Daniel Jones going to learn another offense in his 3rd year? But so that we can even go into Jones in this way. I did a little bit of a thread today where I took a look back on Daniel Jones's 2019 season. And why I did that is because when I think of Daniel Jones right now and I think of his future, the thing that sticks out to me mainly is that his 2019 season is his best season, and that was a year where you had a different offensive philosophy, different mindset, but also a less talented roster. I think the offensive line, even as it's constructed right now, mostly because you have Nate Solder at left tackle versus Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Other positions and other spots you can definitely make an argument for, like Zeitler. But I think the overall offense, the offensive talent is better in 2021 than it was in 2019. But still, that's when you saw Daniel Jones at his best. So I want to throw this to you, maybe before we can talk about some numbers from there. Looking back on Daniel Jones' 2019, as time has gone on, because I think we both want to believe in Daniel Jones, right? I certainly do.
I'm a fan of the Giants. Of course I want to believe in Daniel Jones.
So do you view, and how we've talked about Daniel Jones' 2019 as the years have kind of gone on, do we view that season a little bit overhyped? That is my main question.
Yeah. Yes, I do. And I've made a video on this, and I don't want anybody to think that I hate Daniel Jones. I don't. Okay. I love the New York Giants, and I want to be proven wrong. Anybody that knows that's on my draft reaction, I did not want to draft Daniel Jones in 2019. I didn't think most Giant fans, if they're being completely honest with themselves on draft night, didn't. I know that Bobby was a big fan. He got behind it quick, I think. But most fans were not. Most fans were not behind the Daniel Jones pick at 6. But I wanted to give the kid a chance. And like you said, his first year with the New York Giants, he showed promise. Now, you could definitely point to things for sure that it was kind of coupled together against really bad defenses, right? I think he had like 16 of his touchdowns against like four of the bottom 5 or 6 defenses in football. Like he beat up on the Jets, he beat up on the Lions. The Bucs game, of course, he looked great. But regardless, he's not doing that now.
I was just about to say, I would take any of that right now.
He's not approaching it now, right? And I think they completely botched Daniel Jones. I want to start off by saying that I think the Giants are more at fault than Jones himself. Mm-hmm. I think the Giants from the start set Daniel Jones up to fail. And even the biggest Daniel Jones hater cannot argue against that. Okay. You bring in Pat Shurmur, who was a quarterback guy. I say it all the time. And they drafted Jones to fit Shurmur's scheme. What do? They fire Shurmur the very next year. And then on top of that, Justin, they bring in an offensive coordinator whose scheme is nothing like Shurmur's. Yeah. It's a scheme that's going to rely heavily on strong offensive line play and throwing the ball down the field rather than an East-West style offense, a West Coast style offense, which is what they brought Daniel Jones in the first place. So for me, it didn't make any sense to move on from Shurmur. And if you were going to move on from Shurmur, which I understand as a head coach, but it really screws with Jones, at least bring in a guy that has a similar offense. So I think they completely screwed up the upbringing of Jones. I think they completely messed up in terms of the surrounding cast with the offensive line. But at the end of the day, if you ask me and you put me on a lie detector and you ask me, is Daniel Jones a franchise quarterback? How can I say yes, Justin? I want to say yes. I'm begging to say yes. I don't want to have to draft another quarterback. I don't want to force another quarterback in a really bad situation. But at the end of the day, he's entering year 4, and the guy's got, 12, 13 wins to his name, whatever it is. Yeah. And it's not all his fault. I fully recognize that. But at the end of the day, in the NFL, it's a results-driven business. And in today's NFL, like I hear a lot of people frequently compare him to Phil Simms. And they say, well, Phil Simms, year 5, year 6, year 7, he started to come around. There was no salary cap back then. Right. It's a different NFL than it was back then. And I'm okay with giving him another year. I'll say that right now. I don't want to force another quarterback pick. But when you couple the injuries that he's had, the lack of increase in production going into year 4, if you ask me with my honest opinion, no, I'm not close to being sold that he's a franchise quarterback. Yeah. And it's not all his fault.
Yeah, and Ryan makes a good point with a nice profile picture there. 50-50, I wanted to show you the profile picture. 50%, he left a good comment. You could argue that NFL defense has figured him out, which certainly people have made that argument. I think Dan Schneider, we were talking last week, and he made that argument. Obviously, the offensive systems were pretty different between Garrett and Shurmur. But I think the Giants front office and people that make decisions on who they're going to bring in coaching-wise, whether this is on Joe Judge and he was the one that kind of decided that Jason Garrett should be brought in, or even John Mara, was it forced? Those reports are out there. I don't know what to believe. I would have loved if these things came out the moment that it happened instead of a year after, where, now it's like, well, people could be saving face for themselves. But this just goes to the whole problem that the Giants organization has, where they just misevaluate. They clearly misevaluated the type of quarterback that Daniel Jones is that he can just adjust to a Jason Garrett-like system.
Yep.
One that goes from West Coast and goes from like high to low reads to a Jason Garrett offense that's just centered around timing routes and really having a very, very good brain. Really moving defenses with your eyes. Not sure how often Daniel Jones has done those things, and Shermer really did make things easy on him, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, and maybe Shermer, as the years could have gone on, could have made things more complicated, and as time went on, introduced more things. Now, this isn't to say that Pat Shermer, deserves to stay, but clearly, again, like I said, the Giants organization, they misevaluated what they can get out of their quarterback, like they misevaluated their offensive line this year. Like they misevaluated the edge room this year, thinking that Lorenzo Carter, O'Shane Zimenez can be the guys to lead the edge room, when I think, Chris, wouldn't you say like that's the main reason why this defense has been held back this year? Just and talking about the edge room in the run game and then not getting pressure on the quarterback. So that's the main thing about this. I think this whole Daniel Jones situation. There are limitations that Daniel Jones has, of course, but the front office misevaluating what type of quarterback he is and what can fit his strengths. That's also probably a bigger problem, like you said.
Our organization is the biggest problem. All you got to do is look at Kevin Zeitler. Kevin Zeitler goes to the Baltimore Ravens this year. He looks incredible. You look at Eric Flowers. Eric Flowers leaves the New York Giants. He's one of the best guards in football. Other organizations were able to identify what they could get out of these players and put them in the right situations to succeed. These players that they bring in are not set up properly. You're telling me Kenny Golladay wouldn't look better on the Rams? You know what I'm saying? Like the Giants, it's just a top to bottom. The way that like they set their players up over the last 6-7 years has been a complete and utter disgrace. And I'm not surprised what happened to Jones, to be honest with you, because we saw with Eli for the last 6-7 years of his career. They completely failed him, and I just hope that they finally get it right. And I think a lot of that's going to come down to the general manager, whoever they bring in, and what his mindset's going to be going forward. But
right.
Daniel Jones, to me, yeah, I can't come on here and say he's a franchise quarterback, but by the same time, I could also say that I people talk about Kenny Pickett. People talk about whoever, name the quarterback. If the New York Giants don't improve this surrounding talent, we're just going to waste another quarterback pick.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett's going to come in here and he's going to fail. He's going to suck. I'll be the first for fans that think that Kenny Pickett could come in here, just snap his fingers and things are going to look dandy. We got one starting caliber offensive lineman right now. One. We've got a scheme from 1932. So if you just think you draft Kenny Pickett, everything's going to be dandy. No, you look at all these teams, the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have never had a franchise quarterback. The Chicago Bears go out there and they pick up Justin Fields after they just failed Mitch Trubisky, and Justin Fields ain't looking much better. You look at the New York Jets, same thing. They fail Sam Darnold. They bring in Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson ain't looking so hot. The Giants have got to fix the surrounding talent here, and they got to get the coaches that can get the most out of these players.
So you were talking about like the identity, like a GM having an identity. Now you said you listened to the show today, and did you listen to the whole thing? I'm putting you on the spot.
I have about 20 minutes.
30 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the show today, I had a little bit of mini rant where I stated something, and I stated it very strong about what I want the Giants to be about in the future. So I'll just kind of hand it to you, with a new GM coming in and, with not really going to be a new regime, but it will still feel like newness in the building. And I think it'll be really Joe Judge's process along with Joe Judge's people everywhere. What do you want this Giants team to be about? Like, what do you want this identity of this football team to be in your mind?
Line. Yeah. I'm a line guy, man. That's just like Bobby is. I want them to establish that foundation. I'm not saying you draft exclusively line, but that has got to be fixed. And people point to the Kansas City Chiefs. You hear this all the time on Twitter. And the Chiefs took 2 late offensive linemen this year, both of whom have looked great. And people are like, well, the Chiefs could fix the offensive line in 1 year. Why can't the Giants? But if we're being fair, Justin, for people that think we could go for value on the line like the Chiefs did, do we have Andy Reid calling plays? Do we have Pat Mahomes as the quarterback?
No.
So it's a lot easier for those guys to look better in the Kansas City Chiefs situation than it would be with the New York Giants. And you can say the same thing with Kevin Zeitler in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. That's a big reason why he's looking better.
You have to consider this too, which is why This is why I realistically thought that the offensive line would improve from 2020 to 2021. Patrick Mahomes is the least blitzed quarterback in the National Football League. Teams do that intentionally because when they blitz him, Patrick Mahomes beats him every single time. He beats him deep. When you're blitzing guys, you're not dropping 7 guys back in the coverage, so you're not frustrating Patrick Mahomes. He wants you to blitz. Versus the Giants and Daniel Jones in 2020, he was the highest blitz quarterback in the National Football League. And I thought that even if you signed Kenny Golladay, that would inevitably improve the offensive line because you would produce more explosive plays and then teams would stop blitzing you so much, but that's not the case. So continue.
and to be fair, I try to be as fair as I can, Justin. There was bad luck too. Nick Gates got hurt basically when the year started. Shane Lemieux got hurt before the year started. So there was bad luck there. But for them to completely ignore the offensive line and put their full faith in a guard who had the worst pass blocking rate in all of football the year before in his rookie year, and that pair who could not beat out Nate Solder in training camp, to me, that's an abysmal failure. So for me, let's put it this way. If they take 2 linemen with those first 2 picks this year, I'm not going to complain.
No.
I'll be smiling ear to ear. You get me a right tackle, you get me a center, and you start setting this thing up right for the future quarterback that you're inevitably going to draft or stopgap, whatever, or Daniel Jones. Maybe he does take that, monumental leap in year 4. But that, to me, is where it has to start for this team. You have to start thinking long-term. I know a lot of fans want to think about the quick fix, and they see the Arizona Cardinals. They're like, just get a guy like Kyler Murray. Everything's going to work. Okay. Find me Kyler Murray in this year's draft. If you find me Kyler Murray in this year's draft, I'll sign up for it right now. There ain't Kyler Murray in this year's draft. So, to me, they got to think long-term. They got to fix that line before anything else.
Yeah. My little thing that I kind of stated at today's show was I want the philosophy of this organization from owner to GM to coaches to players. I want this to be communicated. And it kind of is a no shit Sherlock statement. But if you look at certain decisions and if you look at certain things that have been said by people who work for this team in the past, it's not that obvious, I guess. I want there to be a philosophy of scoring points. We want to go out there, score as many points as possible and as often as we can. There's a video that's coming out tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning. I don't know. It's being edited tonight. Are the Giants a poor offensive or a bad offensive franchise when you look at the entire history of the franchise from 1925 to 2021? I'll give you, for the 270.
That's an interesting topic. I like
for the 275 people that are in here. I'll give you a preview. Yes, I found that the Giants. Typically, when you look at the history of the league and you consider how many teams are in the National Football League and you look at how many points they've scored and where they've ranked in points scored, I would say, yes, the Giants are typically a very bad offensive franchise.
I'm going to give you a theory that I have.
Yes.
I'm curious, and not so much in recent history. I'm talking about, like you said, 1920, the broad history of the New York Giants. I think a lot of teams, the way they build their football teams in general, and nowadays it's completely different. I understand it's more of a passing league. It's more offensively driven. The leagues have been changed to allow, to really to the point where you have to focus more on the offensive end than the defensive end because they make it so much more beneficial for the quarterback, right? But historically speaking, I always had the mindset that the New York Giants intentionally built their team the way they did based off their geographical location. You look at the Meadowlands, one of the windiest stadiums in the league. They're not playing in sunny California. They're not playing in sunny Miami. I always thought, historically speaking, they built their team around defense and the ground game because they knew it was going to be windy. They knew it was going to be cold. That was always my theory with the New York Giants, and that's why I always thought they thought defense first before anything else.
No, and it's very true, and I'm not really blaming. I'm not really saying, the Giants have been bad offensively. The Giants, even before the pre-Super Bowl era, which that's when they were best. Like, when you look at their rankings and, they were pretty solid offensively the pre-Super Bowl era. I just want there to be a philosophical change in the building where it has been about defense. It has been about we're going to be aggressive up front on the offensive line. We're going to be aggressive on the defense side of the ball. Those things don't have to change, by the way. You could say those same things. You could still believe those same things, but I want the end of the sentence to be, but we're about scoring points too. We're not just about punching in the mouth for 60 minutes.
Oh, of course. No, I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's what I want from this organization. Whether they say it or not, I don't care. But show it to me. Show it to me and how you prioritize like explosivity and scoring points.
The only time that I could think of that we really had, and we had some good offenses. Like Kerry Collins, there were good offenses when I watched. But the Super Bowl year, and our offensive line still sucked. We didn't have much of a ground game, but our passing attack in 2011, that was that was by far the best passing attack I've ever seen as a Giants fan. And that's essentially the type.
And Chris, I'll tell you what, you know I'm a fan of throwing the ball, and you probably know
you
that
hate running the ball.
I don't. No. Now you see,
I'm a balanced guy. Now I definitely want an aerial assault. I definitely want to be able to open up the offense. I feel like if it were up to you, all right. Let me ask you this:
yeah,
do you want like a Bills style offense? Because the Bills never run. The Bills do not run. It's basically throw with Josh Allen. That's not me. I'd rather have more of a balanced approach.
I want a football team that fits to the strengths of the players.
Of course.
That's what I want. And Chris, when I have a problem with running the ball, it's when NFL teams try to stick to it when it's just not there. When it's flat out not there. And if I have to give Jason Garrett credit for something this year compared to what he did last, now the running game was average last year. But if I'm going to give him credit for one thing, it's that he abandoned the run because it was not working. Now, was the pass game working? Were we throwing the ball effectively? No. That's where the whole analytics things comes in of just because you're throwing the ball a lot doesn't mean you're going to be a good offense. And, the Giants were actually like they had one of the highest first down pass rates in the National Football League all this year. Freddie Kitchens has kind of changed that, and he's actually tried to run the ball a little bit more. And I think you've seen a lot more frustration with that, where it's like, well, we can't run the ball. Except this week against the Chargers, they abandoned it when it was actually working.
What, Justin? I'm thinking about this as you're talking.
Yeah.
You know what would make this so much easier? A good offensive line.
Yes.
Regardless
absolutely.
of what your offensive philosophy is, it's going to help it dramatically.
No, and my whole thing is that I was gonna share with you because you were talking about the Super Bowl here, 2011, that being a really good passing offense. From the years 2008 to 2012, the Giants had a top 10 scoring offense all those years consecutively.
And I remember doing research on this in 2005, and I couldn't believe this when I saw it. The Giants actually had the third-ranked offense in football in Eli Manning's second year. Now, a lot of that had to do with Tiki Barber. They had a great rushing attack, but they had I don't know if it was in terms of points or yards, but they had the third-ranked.
It was points. It may have been both, but they were also top 10 in points scored. I'm giving away all these talking points. Go watch a video tomorrow. I can't give away all my stats for the video tomorrow. But my whole point is that talking about throwing the ball versus running the ball. Chris, I would love to see running the ball all day if it works and if it's efficient. But there are just so few teams in the NFL that can really do that. The Titans can do that. The 49ers can do that. The Ravens can do that. Even the Cowboys. I think even the Cowboys can do it, but sometimes they just choose not to, because when you have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup and Dak Prescott as your quarterback, you can have that balanced attack like you were talking about. So, yeah, I love this discussion. This is so fun. I want to talk about Judge. And kind of bring down the mood a little bit.
Let's get to Judge.
So my whole point of talking about points scored, and scoring points is because Joe Judge had a real quote one game, and I clipped it. And I sometimes feel bad clipping post-game press conferences because I sometimes don't take everything that a coach says seriously. But when Joe Judge, I forget what game it was, but he had a real quote that says, "You sometimes shoot yourself in the foot when you try and score as much points as possible." I didn't really understand that. So DM says, people really believe in Judge? Nothing indicating he's a great coach. So, Chris, I know you have some things to say about this.
I move on from Judge, much like Bobby, and you said, I think you said it as well. Yeah, you said it as well in your latest podcast. I would move on from Judge. My biggest reason for moving on from Judge, though, is probably not the same reason that DM would have or a lot of people in this chat would have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because I don't think he could potentially grow into a good coach. Here's my theory on Judge as a coach this year. I don't think he's changed as a coach. And I know a lot of people may disagree with that. And I think last year he got overpraised because last year he was new. He was fresh. Everybody wanted to, they were so excited. We moved on from Pat Shurmur. Nobody was looking for anything to bash Joe Judge. Okay. We overlooked things. We overlooked that he rushed Daniel Jones back. We kind of overlooked the musical chairs on the offensive line.
There were no expectations last year.
No expectations. So I feel like we were kind of easier. This year, I think people are being a little harder because there's more expectations. You go and you have a 6-win season. You spend the way that you do in free agency. And don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that Joe Judge has done this year where I'm like, what the hell are you doing? His timeout usage is horrible. The second and 23 timeout, the wasting of the challenge. Trust me, there are plenty of things I can complain about with Joe Judge. But here's what I'll say. If the Giants did what they were supposed to do in 2019, which was fire Dave Gettleman when they fired Pat Shurmur, I personally would have kept both for another year and then fired them together if it didn't work. But if you were going to fire Shurmur, I was completely on board with firing Gettleman and then bringing in a GM with Joe Judge. I wouldn't be as outspoken as I am right now of firing Joe Judge. Yeah. I'd be like, okay, these guys came in together. I'm going to give them a little time to try to work this together. But the fact, if you hold on to Joe Judge right now, Justin, it's going to prohibit you from bringing in the best possible general manager candidate that you can hire, because you're going to have to fit that general manager around Joe Judge. And that, to me, is the biggest issue. Now, what the devil's advocate could say to that, because I talk about Ed Dodds. He's a guy I really like, the assistant general manager with the Colts. I look at Borgonzi, who's a great scout from the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are my two fantasy candidates. Are they going to want to take this job if we're being honest with ourselves? Probably not. I mean, Ed Dodds has turned down better jobs in the past. Borgonzi, he's one of the, the highest sought after potential future GM candidates there is. So you could certainly say some of these great candidates may not take the job, but I don't want to limit my hiring candidates. And I don't think Joe Judge has earned the right for me to have to fit a GM around him. But do I think there's some legitimate excuses for why the team's failing outside of his coaching? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Last year, Justin, if you look at the roster, we were actually incredibly lucky with our injuries. Yeah. Outside of Saquon Barkley, nobody on the defense got hurt. Nobody on the offensive line got hurt. We stayed incredibly healthy, and we won 6 games, not to mention the teams we beat were incredibly banged up. Backup quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, blah, 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 blah. This year, everybody on the team is hurt. We were missing 2 of our starting 5 offensive linemen before the year started. Andrew Thomas was out for 4 weeks. Barkley missed time. Galladay missed time. Tony missed time. The four guys on the defense are out for the year. It has been a lot to overcome. So I would move on from Judge, but the biggest reason I'd move on from Judge is not because I don't think he could become a better head coach and because he has these blah press conferences, which I know a lot of people don't like. It's because I don't want to pigeonhole myself from not being able to get the best GM possible.
All right, I feel like I'm a bad YouTube host. I've missed some super chats, so let's get those out of the way. Tudo, you're the man. Drop by the office to pay our proper respects for Giants Nation, and we will slap the stinky Eagle fans losers out of the doors. Yes, sir, Tudo. I hope you made it out to the Eagles game. I know you're from Italy, but I know you have like a whole gang of people that beat the crap out of Eagle fans.
Tudo's the man.
Tudo is the man. Manifesto, continuity is undervalued in New York sports. Keep Judge. Okay, there you go. That's a reason, we talk about continuity. It's sometimes when continuity is the best reason, that can be a bad reason. We talked about that with Jason Garrett, but if there are certain things that John Mara likes about Joe Judge's process, which Chris, I'm trying to tell this to as many people as possible. John Mara is going to stand in front of a microphone during his postseason press conference, and he's going to say these exact words. Are you ready? I've enjoyed Joe's process. Those are going to be the 4 words. I've enjoyed Joe's process. 4. Those are going to be the 4 exact words that he says. And I will be here sitting in this chair with my legs folded and my arms crossed, sipping iced tea when he says it, because everybody's going to freak out. But I've been telling people for a very long time, those are the things that he's going to say. So, yes, continuity. So
you think we're sticking with Judge or we're moving on?
Well, I think we are sticking with Judge. Similar to you, I've been adamant about thinking that we're going to stick with Judge for a hot second, for a hot minute. Just reading the tea leaves of knowing that I think John Mara really does love his process, and knowing that head coaches don't come in here. And not saying that Joe Judge has radically changed the way that the Giants have gone about doing things in the offseason, but usually head coaches don't go in here and then therefore things radically change about how the Giants are doing things in the offseason, like trading down, like the way that they managed free agency in 2020, which was smart. These short little deals that are spread out evenly throughout the life of their contract. Now, obviously, they did have to backload those deals that they did in 2020, but initially it was good value deals of Blake Martinez and James Bradbury that turned out to be really, really good players for for this defense. So the way that they went about the 2020 offseason, and accumulating those draft picks in 2020 where, you hit on a lot of those late round guys or Carter Coughlin, Tay Crowder. I don't care if, Tay Crowder isn't that great. The fact that he's been like a 2-year starter and hopefully next year he can be like the third string once I hope Blake comes back. I hope he kind of doesn't get cut.
You think
He
they're
may
going to
get
bring him
cut.
back?
He may get cut.
That's what I said in my salary cap video today. I can't see him coming back on his salary. I could see them maybe restructuring the salary and bringing him back.
Is he on his final year though? I mean, I don't know if you would have to extend him.
It's going to cost them $14 million to keep him or $5.5 million to cut him. And he's coming off the injury.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting with Blake.
Yeah. So nevertheless, just philosophically, the way that the Giants have gone about things, and even this year, we're trading back, and accumulating draft picks for the next year. So things have kind of gone too differently for me to just sit back and say, oh, Dave Gettleman just decided to philosophically change in his final 2 years as GM. And I would be lying to you. I would flat out be lying to you if I said I didn't enjoy what the Giants have done the last 2 off seasons. I would be lying to you.
Yeah.
But we're not here to evaluate Joe Judge as a head coach for what he does in the offseason.
Exactly. We're here to evaluate him with the X's and O's. 2020, I thought it was the best offseason the Giants have actually had in a while. I loved what they did in 2020 in terms of the free agency, the guys that every free agent move they made hit. Graham Gano hit, James Bradbury hit, Blake Martinez hit, Logan Ryan hit on the 1-year deal. The extension of Nick Gates looked brilliant. Andrew Thomas looks like a good pick. McKinney. This year, however, Justin, he lost me with the drafting. He lost me with the offensive line, not addressing the line. But outside of that, I do. The one thing I'll say about Judge, and I do think it's an unfair. I do think some people give Judge too much praise, and I said that going into the year in terms of the roster evaluation. I personally don't think he has any more hands-on than what Pat Shurmur did or that James Betcher did. You look at all the players we brought in when Betcher was here; they were all former Cardinals. Marcus Gold, Antoine Bethea, Marcus. I think the Giants did the same thing then that they did now. Like they brought in guys that the coaches thought they could get the most out of. So I think some people give Judge too much credit with the roster evaluation, and maybe not enough credit to Dave. I think it's like a collaboration. But I do think these last 2 drafts in terms of the talent has been good. But like you said, it's not about just the talent. Right. It's about getting the most out of the players as a head coach.
And really, I'm fishing for that. I really am. I really am fishing when I say that because I have been one to say in terms of the whole, well, how much does John Mara have an impact on things? And how much does Dave Gettleman, did John Mara put the mandate on Barkley in 2018? And I'm like, listen, this is all too much. This is too much for people who are not in the building. Chris, I think sometimes we hear things, people DM us, sometimes things on the side and we're like, all right, maybe we'll just put this in the bank of takes that we have, but we don't report things, right? So we're not reporters. That's not what we do. So what I have to think for my sanity is the hierarchy of how an NFL franchise works is the owner oversees everything and he owns the team. The GM is responsible for player personnel and hiring the head coach. The head coach is responsible for the execution of the players, hiring his coaching staff, and that's the hierarchy. Like I've told myself that in the past, but now I feel like I'm backtracking that because I'm trying to find reasons to, for it to make sense that Joe Judge will be here. So, I never thought I'd say a coach would be worse at game management than Shurmur. Then we get Judge. He makes some of the worst calls ever. He is horrible. So this is actually a question that I did have written down, Steven. So thank you for asking it. Chris, where I am with Joe Judge's clock management and 4th downs, I don't like the 4th downs more than the clock management. Like timeouts. If the Giants were actually in close games by the time the 4th quarter came down to it, then hey, those timeouts would be valuable, right? But the fact that we're not, it sucks not having those timeouts. But what are you going to do? I'm more critical of Joe Judge. And this is, again, no shit Sherlock, but I'm more critical of Joe Judge, the fact that he hasn't fielded an offense that has scored points at nowhere near an average rate in the NFL. That's where I'm most mad at Joe Judge. And is Chris frozen for me? I think he is. Good thing I talked for a long time, because then we can get this sorted out. Oh, he left. Yeah, so that's where I am. I'm going to wait for Chris to kind of hop back in and join. But that's where I'm at with the whole Joe Judge and using timeouts, where people talk about the clock management, people talk about the 4th downs. I wouldn't care about any of that if the offense and the team just scored more points overall. And I'm sorry about my camera, by the way. I don't know why it's glitching. It's really annoying. It's annoying me. It's probably annoying you. So I'm going to wait for Chris to get back in here. Hopefully he didn't like lose power or something. But that's where I'm at, Steven, with those with like fourth downs and timeouts and stuff like that. Score more points. Score more points. And I don't care how you manage timeouts, and I don't care about if you kick a field goal or you punt every now and then. Grim. Ian O'Connor said on NYG Weekly, I gotta listen to that. NYG Weekly that he thinks Judge is going to marry Judge with the candidate, but then give the option to fire him at year 3 if he fails. Okay, so the GM. I think you're talking about the GM. And there he is.
My internet just went out of my house, so I'm on my dad on my phone. I don't know what just happened, so hopefully it pops
That's okay.
back. But
I'm a professional. I roll with things.
I didn't want you to think that I left you, so I'm holding the phone right now and I'm talking to you. So sorry about that, guys.
No, you're all good. So Ian O'Connor, we got a super chat from Grim. Ian O'Connor said on NYG Weekly that he thinks Joe Judge is going to marry, or that he thinks the GM is going to marry Judge with the candidate, but give them the option to fire him in year 3 if he fails. Ian O'Connor, I have to listen to it. I really like NYG Weekly. I like Ethan. I like Weiss. So I have to see if Ian O'Connor is speaking about that from opinion, or if he's speaking about that with, I like to say, an informed opinion, because there's a difference there.
Ian O'Connor said the Giants Weekly that he thinks Judge is going to marry Judge.
He thinks that like the GM is going to marry Judge, and then like Mara would like give the GM a choice to fire him, Judge, in year 3 if he fails, but then keep the GM. So it would continue this off-cycle nonsense.
It's possible, but at the same time, I still don't like that idea. I don't like forcing I don't like forcing things on the GM coming in. I want that GM to be able to do whatever he feels like is best for the organization. And if he likes Judge, keep Judge by all means, but I want him to be able to make that decision.
Yeah, this off-cycle nonsense is it's nonsense. That's really what it is. And you shoot yourself in the foot doing that. So, man, I'm gonna read some comments, but I'm Joe Judged out. I'm Daniel Jonesed out. I'm Joe Judged out. It's been just weeks of the same conversation. I don't blame people. So we want to know let's talk about this. It was reported today that Jake Fromm could be kind of close to getting in-game reps. What's your whole take on that? And then also, what's your take on a lot of fans kind of calling for very adamantly Jake Fromm to start over Mike Glennon like right now?
Giants fans are obsessed with Jake Fromm.
It's kind of crazy.
Obsessed with Jake Fromm. And I think they're going to be unfortunately surprised when they get an opportunity to see what Jake Fromm's made of with this supporting cast with the like. There's no, I don't see. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Jake Fromm goes out there and he's the second coming of whatever. And maybe if Jake Fromm was afforded a situation like New England, he could come in and be successful, right? Because New England's got a great running game. They got a good offensive line. They got Belichick and all the great minds over there. But with the New York Giants, you're telling me that you think Jake Fromm is going to come in here with this offensive line, with all the injuries they have to all the playmakers on this team, barely knowing the playbook, barely having any experience with these receivers, and come in and play well? Like, I think it's a fantasy. I get why Giants fans want to see it, because they're like, I'm sick of seeing the giraffe. Like, I don't want to see Mike Glennon anymore. I know he ain't going to do anything, and he's not a part of the future. But I think at best, he's a long-term. The evaluation for him, from my perspective, if Jake Fromm does get an opportunity to play, is whether or not this guy can be a long-term backup. He's never going to be a starter for this football team. You're talking about a guy with a limited arm. You're talking about a guy that many thought was going to be a first-round talent coming out of college. He dropped all the way to the 5th, due, in fact, to all of his limitations. He's got no mobility, doesn't have much of an arm. I think Davis Webb was ahead of him on the depth chart.
That's basically where the conversation starts and then almost stops. Is, we're familiar with Davis Webb and how good he looks in shorts. If Davis Webb is finding his way to be ahead of you on a depth chart, even on a team like the Buffalo Bills, where you have Josh Allen, who's the clear number 1, and really when you have Josh Allen on your football team, all you really need to do if you're the second string is just show up and smile on Sunday, and they didn't even let him do that. He was like the protected quarterback last year. He was the COVID quarterback last year with the Bills, and then he's been on the practice squad all year this year. And again, they had Davis Webb on a depth chart ahead of him during the summer. So, I mean, that just tells you what I think you need to know.
And they picked up, I'm going to move this here. And they picked up Mitch Trubisky, so I don't got to hold it. They picked up, excuse the hole in the ceiling in the basement. They picked up Mitch Trubisky because they felt like he couldn't even be a backup before the year started. So
yeah,
I don't have any faith in Jake Fromm at all. It's something different to watch. I guess it gives us a reason as fans to watch the game, but I ain't buying it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, as somebody who sits behind this microphone 3 times a week and talks about this team for 40 minutes to an hour each time. I'm not going to sit behind this microphone and just say, I just want this for the sake of change. You kind of have to think as a coach, but I will say it did surprise me because I am thinking about the coaching staff. I am thinking about how jobs can be on the line, even for some specific position coaches too. And the fact that they're going to possibly roll with Jake Fromm when he's 3 or 4 weeks into the offense where, I think Leonard's going to start, but maybe you see Fromm for a quarter, a drive. I don't know. I guess that's something that's what we're looking forward to. It's for the rest of the season is when are the situations.
That's how sad it's become. That's the highlight of our week as Giants fans, getting to see a 4th-string quarterback get it
Oh! Oh, boy. All right, we got another super chatter. Talk about how Logic's finest comment is dumb. Who's that? I don't know who that is. Is that a Giants YouTuber?
No, he's probably in the chat. That's probably because let me pull up the chat. He's been in my chats before.
I don't want to call anybody dumb.
Yeah, no, don't call anybody dumb.
That's insulting. I mean, I appreciate the super chat, but
here's what I'm assuming. Well, this is his latest comment. Maybe he was referring to something else. Logic said, Leonard Williams does absolutely nothing. His technique is sloppy. He's slow, has a useless spin move, and is going through the motions just to fulfill his contractual obligations. I'm assuming that's what he's referring to.
Well, okay. I don't want to call it dumb. It's silly. How about that? I would call it dumb if I didn't say, don't say things that are dumb 2 minutes ago. But yeah, man,
you love Leonard Williams.
I do.
And I like Leonard Williams too, by the way.
I do. I mean, I need to find a graphic that I posted last year about just how good his 2020 was. So Leonard Williams in 2020, 11.5 sacks, 30 QB hits, 42 pressures, right? All other Giants edge rushers combined, there were 9 players who were edge rushers for the Giants last year. 9.5 sacks, 27 QB hits, 55 pressures. So again, that's 11.5 sacks for Leonard Williams versus 9.5 sacks for 9 edge rushers last year for the Giants. 30 QB hits for Leonard Williams versus 27 QB hits. And then 42 pressures versus 55. So 9 players had more pressures than one guy last year. Now, you can have the opinion, sure, I can't evaluate this. I don't know Leonard Williams personally. You can have the opinion that Leonard Williams is now milking it now that he got his contract. Sure. Okay. Leonard Williams was also first in the National Football League in tackles amongst defensive linemen this year. So I get it. The sacks are kind of there where, he may have gotten close. There's only 4 games left and he still has 5.5. He could have gotten 7.5 sacks to finish the season. Maybe he gets 2 sacks in the final 4 games. And that's a respectable season for an interior defensive lineman. Is it 10 sacks like everybody wants? No. Where I'm frustrated with Leonard Williams this year is the lack of QB hits and the lack of pressures. But guess what? Nobody on this defense is getting QB hits and pressures. The Giants are bottom of the league in that category. So I look at Leonard Williams, and it's like, yes, he's first in the National Football League in tackles amongst defensive linemen. The Giants' defense is just getting smacked. Everybody's getting smacked when it comes to pass protection and run defense. Dude is still a good football player, and he's still playing well for us. Is he playing as well as 2020? No. Get me some edge rushers. Get me some capable bodies at other places around him, and then let's see what Leonard Williams can do.
I'm in complete agreement with you, by the way. I think Leonard Williams, some people may not want to hear this, because I you know what it is? I get it. Fans, he gets his money, and they want to rag on the guy. And you knew it was going to happen if he didn't match last year's totals. And you knew going in more than likely he wasn't going to match last year's totals. I still think Leonard Williams is the best player on our defense. And if it's not him, maybe Adoree Jackson. I think Adoree Jackson played really well for the Giants this year. But Leonard Williams is still a damn good player. But how much do you think? By the way, I could not believe that there were. I shouldn't say. I don't want to disrespect anybody. Whoops. I don't want to disrespect anybody's opinion, right? But I can't believe that there were fans before the year started that thought that keeping Dalvin Tomlinson was the right decision over keeping Leonard Williams. Okay, I'll start by saying that. Like, to me, it was not even a debate. Like, Leonard Williams is the clear guy that you take out of those two. But how much do you think, knowing that you weren't going to be able to keep both, how much do you think Dalvin Tomlinson leaving is impacting Leonard Williams in terms of his production?
I think what you saw, and Bobby Skinner's done a great job over the years kind of breaking this down. When did Dalvin Tomlinson really become that Pro Bowl player?
Leonard Williams.
Yeah. This is not to dismiss Dalvin Tomlinson as a football player. I think he's a very good football player. Very good football player.
I don't mean to interrupt. Is there a pause button in front of my face?
No.
Okay, so that's just on my screen. Okay, good.
Just on your screen. Yeah. This is not to dismiss Dalvin Tomlinson as a football player because he's a really good football player, but I think we've seen that Leonard Williams, for the most part, 2020 is obviously an exception because whatever has been happening this year, with the edge room, which I also think it's the Giants coaching staff's fault and it's the front office's fault, where they just totally misevaluated we said this to start the show, totally misevaluated what they thought that they can get out of that edge room, where you saw the blitz rate for Patrick Graham was like north of 40%. And then he's like, whoa, nobody's getting home. I'm blitzing Teddy Bridgewater 40% of his passing attempts, but he still has 3 seconds on average to throw the ball. This can't be the approach this year. So then you saw Patrick Graham have to have weeks of kind of backtracking of what I guess he implemented and then implementing some stuff where what he did last year, neither here nor there. I think overall in today's NFL, long-term investment, it's better to have plus secondary players than it is plus run defenders. And they are valuable. I have to say, run defenders are extremely valuable in today's NFL, despite me being a guy that's all about throwing the ball, because the more that teams are going to go to this too high approach, the more that teams are going to put less guys in the box. That makes the Dalvin Tomlinsons of the world, the Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrences, Austin Johnsons of the world, that makes them a lot more valuable. Because if you're not going to put a guy like Jabril Peppers in the box consistently like they've done in years past, then those guys up front need to stop the run.
Yeah.
Or else you're not going to be able to stop the run. And that's what you've seen this year. That's why losing Blake Martinez is so big. Because Tay Crowder is not a interior linebacker number one. But I still do prioritize that secondary and that cornerback over paying Dalvin Tomlinson like that kind of money on an AAV basis. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay Dalvin Tomlinson either, and I love Dalvin Tomlinson. He was one of the captains of the football team, a great player. I do think he definitely benefited, and to my knowledge, and I haven't been keeping up with Dalvin, he started poorly with the Vikings.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I've tried to keep up with it, because largely I kind of want to do some narratives. I'm not a big narrative guy, but you kind of have to you have to shut some people up sometimes. Where if they're talking nonsense. Yeah. Where it's like Dalvin Tomlinson, he's not having a good year in Minnesota, then you have to kind of point it out. And while Adoree Jackson is having a good year for the Giants. So I had a point, and I forgot that point.
That's not good.
I know, it stinks. It really does stink. Leonard Williams, 107 straight games. You know he's never missed a game in his entire career?
I didn't know that he's never missed a game in his career, but I did know that it's been a long time since he's missed a game. I didn't know that he's never missed a game. I heard that this week. So yes, that's a good trait to have for sure.
Yeah.
I just wish we were winning these games.
I know, man. It's tough. All right, let's get some comments here. This is a fun one. Saquon could stay if he's taking the minimum. How do you evaluate Saquon Barkley's season?
Not good. Do I think sometimes fans maybe are a little bit tougher on him than they should be, based off the fact that he's coming off an ACL and MCL tear, and everybody basically said that it may take another year for him to get completely back to his old self. Sure, yeah, but regardless of, even if Saquon gets back to what Saquon used to be, which he could, next year I think he could become that player again. We'll see if he, completely recovers and maybe this offensive line can improve and he has a really strong year. I don't think that you can. I don't think you can keep Saquon long term. I just can't see it. I don't see how the New York Giants, especially bringing in a new GM, he's not going to have any ties to him. He's not going to be the guy that drafted him second overall. I know that Saquon's like a face of the franchise type guy. He's a guy that sells jerseys. But at the end of the day, if you're about winning football games, You can't pay a running back that kind of money if your team's not playing well. I mean, if the Giants are winning 10, 11 games, that's a different discussion. But the fact that we've been as poor as we have, and all you got to do is go back and look over Giants history. 2008, when we won the Super Bowl, you know this, you're an historian, you were talking about doing the video you were doing. We had a running back in the 7th round, the 7th round, the 4th round. We led the league in rushing in 2008 behind a great offensive line. So if you can block properly, you could put an average to even slightly below average running back behind your line, and they're going to take off. You look at DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing with the Dallas Cowboys. Next year, he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Not as hot of a scheme, not as hot of an offensive line. He doesn't look like near the same player. So for me, as much as I love Saquon, he's my favorite player on the team, maybe outside of Andrew Thomas because I love the hog mollies, but I absolutely love Saquon Barkley, and I hope wherever he goes, if it's not going to be with the Giants long term, he shuts a lot of people up that have trashed him this year, because I do still think he could be a really good player. And I still do love Saquon Barkley as a player and as a leader of a football team. But unfortunately, much like with Jones, the pick never made sense. We couldn't set him up properly. We didn't have an offensive line when we brought him in. And I think Dave and the Giants tried to do two things at once. They signed Solder, they draft Hernandez, and draft Barkley in the same year, and it just did not work, and we never supported him the proper way. And then, of course, the unfortunate injuries. So It's unfortunate. It's not going to work out here. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be rooting my ass off for him, wherever he ends up.
Yeah. Can you see this that I have on the screen? I know you're on your phone, but can you see what I got on the screen right now?
Yep.
I want to show this to as many people as possible, not because, I want to bash on anybody, but I worked my ass off on this. I charted, this was 2 weeks ago, where I charted every single rushing attempt by Giants running backs this year. And I charted how many went for 0 or negative yards, 1+ yards, 3+ yards, 5+, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing with Barkley is that, the explosive runs just aren't there.
Yep.
I know he's had a few the last couple weeks, but, again, where in 2018, I feel like it was just more often, and now it's like, one every 3 weeks. And that's not what we're looking for. And when you counteract that, the explosive runs are happening at such kind of like a low rate, but then you have 1 out of every 5 rushing attempts that Saquon Barkley is, 1 out of every 4. There you go, Justin. 1 out of every 4 that's going for 0 yards or negative yards. I mean, that's just bad. And this isn't even to say, like, you look at Devontae Booker on the other side. This isn't even to say that Devontae Booker's good. It's just the conversation between Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker in terms of the performance of those guys, it shouldn't be close. And at this point, it's close, and it is because of a bad offensive line. It's for a lot of different reasons, but
could theoretically be because he's not fully, back.
Correct. Correct.
That he's like Adrian Peterson is a different breed. Like, he's one of a few exceptions of a guy that came back and was completely himself after 1 year. But even if that's the case, which I hope it is, and I think it very well could be with Saquon Barkley, it doesn't matter. Still can't sign him long term.
No, like it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, like you said. Saquon isn't 100%. I love all cap comments. What is he supposed to do when the line couldn't block middle school powder puff girls? It's a good question, Sean. It's a good question. I love comments in all comments in all caps. Justin, you need to make this chart without the Raiders game. It's a massive difference. There's one misleading as hell because it's one game. And that's fair. I mean, I acknowledge that, but also, like, the Raiders game counts. I can't, when you're including stats, it's like, well, then I would also need to take out, if I'm going to do that, then I need to take out Devontae Booker's best game and then Devontae Booker's worst game. And then I would also need to do that for Saquon Barkley. The best games count, just like the bad games count. So that's kind of like how I don't like when people say, excluding this game for stats. Like, no, people do that for Daniel Jones. And we talked about it like at the beginning, where it's like, but he played bad defenses. I don't care. Like, the best quarterbacks in the National Football League have feasted off of bad defense. Why are the Eagles in playoff contention right now when they were supposed to be the Giants this year, might I add? Like, the Eagles were supposed to be the Giants. They feasted off of bad defenses. They've, not except the Giants, haha. That's the moral of the story. You got to be better. There you go. That's a good way to put it. So we're almost at an hour. I don't think I missed any super chats, but I appreciate everybody being here. Chris, I appreciate you being on your phone, and even if your internet goes down and kind of bearing with everything.
I got to reboot the box or something. I don't know what happened there. That happens every once in a while. I don't know why. where the internet just goes out and I got to reboot it. But I was like, that's going to take too long. I'll just go on the phone.
Yeah. You're a true professional. I appreciate you. You have a new podcast with Mike Too Nice. So can you please plug that or anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, we just started. It was for fun. Mike came up to me, asked me if I want to do a podcast. So I said, yeah, let's give it a try. We did an episode and we'll see where it goes. I think it's called Mike Entertainah Talking Sports. So you can check it out on Apple Podcasts, whatever other platforms it's on. I don't even know. I'm new to podcasting now, but all the big platforms, it's on there. So you can check it out there. We talked about the big rumors that have come about with the New York Giants recently, that being what was it? The Russell Wilson, which we didn't get into in this, and something else too. Oh, the fact that Joe Judge is probably coming back. So I had fun talking with Mike. Always like Mike. Mike is a completely different person on YouTube as he is on Twitter. I say that all the time because I know a lot of people just know Mike from Twitter. But he's definitely a nice guy if you get to know him off of Twitter and on YouTube. And I've worked with Mike for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. As far as my channel, come on over, check me out. But most important thing is, I always have a blast talking with you guys. I hope I get, an opportunity to work with you guys during the off season when there's actual stuff to really sink our teeth into. And I hope Bobby's doing well. I know Bobby's sick right now.
He's going through it. It's kind of bizarre.
I hope he's doing well, man. I saw him on your pod and still looked like he was a little bit out of it. But I hope he's doing well. Bobby's a great guy, so I hope he's doing well.
And I hope. Number one, I hope they have a fan fest again next year. For the people that weren't here towards the beginning of the show, I mean, just Authentic took this picture, where we had it was our first Talking Giants event. Like this was our first, post COVID and coming back to the stadium, and this was pretty much Fan Fest. I think was like the first time the fans were like welcomed back to the stadium. We did this show was on YouTube, by the way. So if you look up, we put it on our channel. So if you want to like Google Fan Fest Talking Giants, you should be able to find it. And I think it's an evergreen conversation. It might be fun to look back and see some of our preseason takes. If you really want to have a laugh when we expected this team to win 8, 9, 10 games, dare I say. No, but that was like, seriously, like that was the most proud that I've been as a person who does content is that moment. It is that moment where we got everybody together. We got Joe, we got you, and so many other people that even just weren't on like that show with us. And we recorded that convo and we had a great day. So I hope they have Fan Fest again next year, but even more than Fan Fest, I hope that they have some sort of training camp that's open to the public so we can do more stuff like that.
I'll definitely
live stream from the parking lot. I want to do it all. Like I've had these plans.
All of it.
I've had these plans
by the way, as you were talking, the most embarrassing moment of that day wasn't even our takes.
What was our sweat? We
ran a freaking lap for Joe Judge. He didn't.
I didn't.
Not this year. He didn't earn that. Yeah, you didn't. You didn't run it. You found a way out of it. But
no, well, I was videotaping, and that was my way out. I would have ran. First of all, I really supported it. Everybody supported it. I just didn't want to run. That was I didn't have like a philosophical thing. I just didn't want to run. So yes, we did all run laps for Joe Judge. So it's bizarre, but I really training camp. It's my favorite time of the year. You're 0-0. You're 0-0. People talk about the draft, and the draft is like stress. It's stressful for us, I think. I know people enjoy it. That's Bobby's favorite time of the year. Mine is training camp, where we're putting out PPPs every single day in the month of August. And if training camp is open to the public, you really get a good sense of kind of where your team is at, and if the practices are ran tough, which I would love to see a Joe Judge practice. Even if people don't like him as a coach. Joe Clark left us a super chat, and this will be the final thing. If available, Hutchinson or Neal in the first round. I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. Where are you at?
I've looked at them a decent amount. I've watched some film on them. I haven't, like you said, I'm not like going crazy with the draft yet. It's so tough, man. Joe knows I'm a huge offensive line guy. I would love Evan Neal, but if Hutchinson's there and I could still get a high-end tackle with my second pick, I'd probably go with Hutchinson because Hutchinson right now, a lot of people are viewing him as a potential like Bosa type, edge rusher. And if you could bring in a guy like that and maybe take an offensive lineman with your next 2 picks, that's something I'd be on board with. I'd probably lean Hutchinson, but what I'll say to Joe is, at least right now, the way I feel, and maybe my opinion will change, I don't think Hutchinson's going to be there when we pick.
Yeah. Well, good thing is if they're both on the board, we're 2 first-round picks, so we don't have the problem of this or that. It's just going to be if they're there, well, then guess what? The next pick, we're going to have it. Can you imagine draft night if we have back-to-back picks, because the live stream, it's like, oh my God, we picked this person, we did this thing, and then we react to it. But there's going to be reaction, and then there's going to be instant, like, okay, we're going again.
Right.
It is going to be nuts. I think we are going to have back-to-back picks.
You
I really think it's going to be fifth
back-to-back?
and sixth. Yeah, I think so. Carolina is the only team that's threatening us right now with that sixth pick. And I think the Bears pick is basically a lock to be pick 5. I think it's going to be 5 and 6, unless, the Panthers continue to just lose with Cam Newton and we squeak out 2 wins maybe. But I think it's going to be 5 and 6.
If we're back to back, it'll be interesting. I think there's so many possibilities. You could trade down. It's going to be a lot of fun though. Man. Covering the draft, mocking the draft, going over all the scenarios where the New York Giants could go within the draft, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not like Bobby. I mean, in recent years, I've been like Bobby, where the draft's my favorite time because the team's been so bad. But when the team's good, I want to get to a point, Justin, where I'm just like, all right, wake me up in April about the draft because our team's so good, I don't even care. Like, I want to be a Patriot fan or a Packer fan where you're like, all right, it'll be nice to have.
And we have the 29th pick. How much of a difference players are going to be?
Yeah, we're going to anyway. That's what I want, man. I'm sick of looking forward to the draft. Unfortunately, I am looking forward to the draft because I'm thinking of improve our football team. But there's going to be plenty of time to talk about that.
Absolutely. And Mike, we will be going to the Senior Bowl this year. I did not join Bobby last year because I was working, but now that we're both full time, we will be making our way down to Mobile, Alabama for a couple days, and
maybe I'll join. Don't mind. Maybe I'll join.
Please. We can't get you paid.
Cool.
We can't get you paid by John Boy Media, but come on down.
I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be cool to go down there and see some of the prospects and what you guys. You basically just sit in the stands and you write down your thoughts of each player. Or
yeah, I mean, you're because we would go down as media members. I mean that's the thing. It's I think there may be like a process where we're technically media scum. And Bobby says, and like Kadarius Toney says, media some clowns. And we can talk to people and find there may be more things that are lifted this year with COVID. So Bobby, I think, has a little bit of a better understanding than I do. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm just looking forward to just being obnoxious because I'm just going to be down there like I don't know a lot of players. This player looks good. I know this player. He was on the invitee list and he looks good, but because I'm a person, Chris, where, like I said, the draft is to me. Just growing up, I was never fully that into it. It's exciting. Like, don't get me wrong. And I love live streaming we live stream for like 15 hours, throughout the whole draft weekend. But I don't really get fully into draft prep until like March. Like that, I want to get through free agency, take one thing at a time, and then I will really dive into draft prep in March. So I can't wait to be blissfully ignorant in January and just be like with the microphone and a camera and be like, I don't know who I'm looking at, but we're going to have fun. So it's going to be great. Chris, thank you for joining me. I don't think, no more super chats. Don't give any more money. I want to leave. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for joining. We will be chatting soon. And hey, maybe I'll see you down in Mobile, Alabama. Go Giants. And let's go 8-9. I think that's a possibility. Let's do that.
Do you?